Good evening, everyone. Here we are from Esther again this week for you in our lockdown 7 o'clock Friday night webinar. And it's a different viewpoint this week. We're thrilled to be joined by Fiona Macbeth, who is a psychotherapist specialising in performing arts medicine, and also Ingrid Perrin, who is our Regional Officers Coordinator, and Phil Aird, the CEO. And I'm Nicole Wilson, your host for tonight. We're going to be talking to you tonight about well-being. So to start it off, Fiona, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling quite calm at the moment because I'm working, and when I'm working, I'm distracted and involved, and it feels normal. But how I'll feel at the end of this, I don't know. That's the tricky bit, really, for me anyway.
And what about you, Ingrid?
I think a little bit up and down. I initially found my concentration was a big problem, but as Fiona says, well, you're working, it's great. When you're absorbed in your things, it's fine, and the rest of the time, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Variety of things.
Yeah. Phil, we're glad to see you. At least you have some books to keep you company this week, and not just your plain wall. It makes me feel better for you. How are you coping?
To be honest, it depends. If I can get an hour's violin practice in and a walk, I feel pretty chilled out and quite relaxed, regardless of whatever the challenges are of the day. If I don't get those in, I do feel a bit uptight, tense.
Yeah. Personally, I'm finding it hard in the middle of the night. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and start this sort of panicking feeling, sort of things that aren't happening, that would have been happening, and then things I should be doing. And what if I don't? What if we come out of this and everyone else has been doing something else? And I don't know. It's just all those what ifs for me. They go round and round in my head, and I have to give myself a real sort of talk down off the wall sometimes to be able to get a good night's sleep. The irony being, I've never had so much time in bed. Normally, I'm out till midnight working every night and desperate to get to bed. And now I slightly start dreading it a little bit, which is a new thing for me. So it's difficult times, isn't it? We've had a few questions come in, but we also wanted to say you're very welcome to comment, of course, as always, on the Facebook wall. But if you feel uncomfortable doing that and you would rather have a private conversation, you're very welcome to email our support line, and Fiona will answer your questions privately. Phil, could you give us the address for that?
Yes, it's support@esterstrings.org.uk. And if that comes into us, it'll go directly to Fiona, and we'll leave that safely in her hands.
Brilliant. So please do send in some questions. You're not alone, really not. Yeah. Anyway, we've had some questions in already, so we want to share some of them, and they're all anonymous, which is absolutely fine. And the first person says, being an introvert, this sort of solitude suits me. However, I'm anxious that real life seems to be getting further and further away, and I'm worried I won't be able to reintegrate afterwards. It feels like I'm losing confidence and sinking down a bit of a hole. Fiona, what would you say?
It's a really interesting one, this, because I've seen this with a lot of my clients. You know, initially they think, oh, this plays to all my strengths. You know, I've got a bit of social anxiety. I love being on my own. I'd like to withdraw to my room and not be nagged about going out and making new friends. This is perfect. But actually, longer term, this is the last thing that you want, really, because yes, it will make re-entry and getting back into normal life very difficult. And there is a possibility that you can become totally disengaged from life and other people. So what we all have to do is keep those connections going in the best way that we can. It's terribly important at the moment to try and develop a routine. You've probably heard this on television and elsewhere, but I think the most important thing for all of us to manage this lockdown period of uncertainty is to each develop a daily routine that we have that contains certain elements to try and make this bearable and to safeguard our mental health as much as possible. I mean, Phil just mentioned there about music. I think you're so lucky that, you know, you've got a love and a passion like that you can do in these current circumstances, and ideally do each day to actually bring you some joy and to take you away from thinking about this terrible virus for at least half an hour a day. So I think it's really important to have something like that as part of your daily routine. Other things, briefly, that I think should be included in a daily routine are some form of exercise. This can be a live stream workout, it can be a bit of jogging, it can be a brisk walk, it can be some routine of your own, but just something that gets the blood pumping and gets you feeling connected to your body. So you don't, what we want to challenge is we don't want to become lethargic. So we need some exercise each day just to keep the blood going and to keep it pumping. Mindfulness and relaxation are very important. There's a couple of really good apps, Headspace, which you can get free on a free trial, or you can subscribe to. And there's another one called Insight Timer, which is totally free. They all have short meditation sort of programs on them and longer podcasts as well. And they're very helpful at times like this. And there's a lot of free material out there, and it's time for people to use and explore. So please, use the apps and try and explore this so you get some sort of mind relaxation each day. I think engaging with people, as we've said, is very important in whatever way you can, but ideally so you can see them, even if it's over Zoom or whatever, as Skype or whatever. That's so much more reassuring to us than a telephone call. So if we can do that, I think that's great. And finally, eating well and managing your alcohol intake is very important. There is a tendency in this, because this is like feeling that we are under attack and that our survival is at stake. And we all know what that can trigger in us. It's fight, flight, or freeze. There's no possibility of flight at the moment because we're all in lockdown. Sadly, there's probably quite a bit of fighting going on and people getting very angry about things and having arguments for no particular reason. The other thing that people are doing is freezing and zoning out and just numbing out and just trying to sort of disengage from it all, either just doing this mentally or doing this with drugs, prescription and otherwise, or doing this with alcohol. And this is not really a good idea. The odd glass of wine in the evening is fine, but excessive alcohol intake is not going to help longer term. And it's something you really do need to monitor. So I think the structured day is really important for all of us. And for musicians, if you can include that music as well, that's really going to help.
I mean, I also find it very difficult. Every day feels like Monday now.
Yeah.
That's very hard. Phil, I see you laugh there.
Yeah.
I'm in a complete agreement with you. I'm with you on that.
So how are you? So Phil,
watch this, because this is laughable, but it's dangerous as well. We need to create days that are distinctive. Somebody told me their little girl said last night, "Daddy, I don't want to have the same day tomorrow. I want it to be different." And that's so sad, because even children are recognizing this, that they want events that actually make this a different day. And we have to structure this for ourselves as well. It's terribly important, so that it's Monday or it's Saturday. We have to create these engagements so that we still know where we are, and we still know that the sequence of time is passing, even though it feels very slowly.
Yeah. We had another very heartfelt email from somebody who says that they admit now that they're pretty up and down about all this. They had a good bit of down, followed by a week or so of sunshine, and thinking it'll all be great. Set up for online teaching, thanks to our advice apparently, which is lovely to hear. Whoever you are out there, we're really glad. And then yesterday, this person started chasing up all their pupils, ready to start properly at start of term next week, which of course is Monday for most people. So far, about a third of their pupils have taken up the offer, with 1/3 a flat no for various reasons, finances, lack of technology, etc. It's fine, parents too busy. And the final third still not responded. And it also seems that the pupils that they'd hoped to quietly drop are keen to carry on. Always brings some surprises. Whereas a couple of boys who really hugely benefit from music in their lives can't carry on. And after this email chase up, this person probably unwisely added up the other lost earnings, playing whole class projects, school concerts and things like that, and got very depressed about it. It's a difficult situation to be in it. I mean, Phil, what would you say to this person?
That's a really, really difficult one. The only thing, if it was me, just not give up, just try and slowly chip away at it, because while you're in that position where a third have declined and a third you just can't get a response from, I guess everybody's feeling really uptight and tense. You don't know what those 2/3 are going through at the moment. So really, I guess I would focus on just slowly making sure the third who are having lessons are having a really positive experience, because word of mouth carries so much weight. Then you may find that might generate new pupils. But to slowly, I think, come back after a little break to the other 2/3 to see if there's anything you can do. Even perhaps offering some free lessons, some taster lessons to those who are worried financially. And be careful, it's a balance. Be careful not to bombard people with emails and not to sound desperate, I suppose. But really just to come over as you're there to support. And if they change their mind, they only just have to pick up the phone. But I think it's, I was saying to somebody this week, every day seems to be full of chaos and calamity and opportunity at the same time. So I think when things aren't going that well, or when you're losing some of your clients, some of your pupils, then investigate ways of finding new ones as well. So that's all I could say on that, really, I think.
Yeah. Ingrid, you've got some off the sort of the teaching route slightly. You've got some nice ideas, haven't you, for people making some new connections. So I mean, you know, we sit here sort of desperately trying to reach out to those that we know, but there actually has been some wonderful new friendships and groups struck up during this time.
There definitely has, and I think this ties in quite nicely with what Fiona said about making a bit of a routine. So earlier this week, I was very lucky to be invited to a virtual coffee meetup set up by our esteemed regional officer in Cambridgeshire to meet some other teachers. Now that was lovely. It was really nice to see a friendly face I knew, to meet somebody else who was new completely. And we had a good old chat, and of course, because you're immediately tied together with the common bond of teaching. So, and you're probably going through the same stage of setting up things on unfamiliar platforms. So that was really nice. We came away with some practical tips and some other ideas that came up. One thing was that it's very tiring mentally to do everything online in quite an intense face-to-face way, where previously we may have accompanied a little bit on the piano, we may have walked over, picked up the cello, we may have stood over and pointed something out on the music. So it's not exactly a static thing that we're doing when we're teaching. But of course, when we're online, we are fixed. We are fixed in one place. We are playing, but we haven't got that motion that that we normally have. So we were thinking up some different stretches and possibly a suggestion that the students might quite like to join in on some of those physical things that we can do to stretch out a little bit. That could be quite a fun part of the lesson, so we're not constantly just talking about the instrument. So that was very nice. I highly recommend doing that. And I think we decided, we had a little chat and thought that maybe the optimum number for a meeting like that would be up to 6 people. So it's not an overwhelming thing. I wouldn't expect a regional officer to reach out to every single member and want to get dozens and dozens of people online, but a little sort of, Naomi called it a virtual coffee meeting, and I think that's a really nice way of putting it. So a little micro meeting is a lovely thing, and it's full of surprises, and you'll get something nice out of it, and maybe just set it for 30 minutes.
Yeah, in fact, we just had a little note here from Charlotte Howes on the Facebook page. Hi, Charlotte. And also hi, Naomi, who's just sent, thanks, Ingrid. Virtual coffee was really morale boosting. Well done. But Charlotte Howes says that she's completely rearranged her computer position so that she can move around. And in fact, I'm seriously considering this, getting a bit of backache now into, you know, week 4, and thinking I might just raise the whole thing and stand. And although that's going to, you know, maybe give me varicose veins, perhaps, I think that's going to help a lot, actually.
That's a great idea. And I think sometimes the key thing seems to be a variety of things. So, yeah, you could spend part of your day standing, part sitting. You could get one of those lovely big exercise balls, if you're safe not to fall off it. That's lovely, because then you get those little sort of micro adjustments, so you're sort of moving things around a bit. I think that is nice. The other thing I was going to say was that I'm actually, this does apply to regional officers who are on board with us already. I'm having a meeting for you on Monday next week. I'm going to learn how to do an invitation on Zoom. I will let people know. That's I should think that's quite a straightforward thing to do. And also just to quickly say that although we are still putting out our call for new regional officers, although it does start in autumn, there's still 6 months until then. So there's a lot that people can do if they want to pick it up now and maybe get the benefits on a pro rata level. There's still 6 months of having little meetings and setting things up and making contact and getting to know the people in your area a little bit differently than you might have done before.
Lovely. Do write in if you'd like to be a regional officer. It'd be great to have as many people as possible. And you could even, is it possible, Phil, to be a temporary lockdown regional officer? Just while, somebody maybe wouldn't have the time normally?
Well, maybe, yeah, I think that's a very good idea. And it's a great way of trying out whether you want to be a regional officer. You may find that after a couple of virtual coffee meetings that it's the thing for you. Or you may identify somebody in that group.
Yes, absolutely.
It's even better.
Yeah. It's quite a nice, organically natural, evolving way of
yes. Yeah. I've got one question, if I may, for Fiona, and that is, and you can help my family out here, Fiona. We're all terribly busy. We're not in an enormous house. So what's your advice on working patterns? Because we're all trying to grab the broadband. We're all trying to do our thing, sometimes at the same time. And that can lead to a few tensions because, my wife is terribly busy online teaching. My daughter starts school on Monday. So that takes a lot of supervision as well. And I've got a few things to do myself. So what's your experience of managing these dynamics within the household?
Tricky, isn't it? I think it's all about zones, and it's about communication. I think we all need our own bit of space somewhere where we are working, and that bit of space has to be respected. If it's the kitchen table, you can't suddenly start baking a cake on it while somebody's trying to work there. This has to be recognised as somebody's work area, and I think it's important to discuss all that and work out where everybody's going to sort of perch and respect those areas. And then I think communication is really important, like every morning just saying, well, I've got an important call at 11 or whatever, or I'm doing a lesson at 12, so people don't suddenly discover that they can't use the Wi-Fi because too many people are on it, and they're walking around trying to tell people to get off or gesticulate while this is going on, because that's terrible, and very stressful. So I think there needs to be some sort of check-in in the morning, right? This is what my day is looking like, and if there is going to be clash points, pinch points, they need to be negotiated up front, I think, really. And then it's really important to meet together, if possible, for dinner or something where you just kind of do all engage and meet and sort of talk about other things and just maybe have a bit of fun as well. I think that's really important too. And if people can, take it in turns to cook and things like that, or bake a cake or whatever, that's all very bonding, isn't it? There are some positives from this, because people are spending much more time with their children and in their family situation than they would normally, and that is very positive if we can just manage the sort of tensions and the tendency to fight as well through all that difficult time.
I know several people who've come across a rather sort of unusual, well, maybe it's not so unusual, I don't know, problem of role reversal. So somebody who has been the main breadwinner for years in the house, they are now either unemployed and don't have any money come in, or have nothing to do, but are suddenly in charge of maybe homeschooling, one of the most stressful things in the world. And then somebody who's maybe just been dealing with the school run and organising the children and has a part-time job, suddenly they have become the main breadwinner. And the stress and the responsibility they feel about that can be just overwhelming sometimes.
I think what we have to remind ourselves, though, is that we're in a period of transition. You know, if we start to think, well, this is permanent, this is new order, you know, that there will be a feeling of panic and being trapped. But this is transition and being flexible. And also, I think it's important, you know, that previous question about pupils and not keeping the ones you want and losing others. It is difficult. It's terribly difficult. I've had it with clients. You know, I've had the same process of having to go online with all my counselling, and it's exhausting. And some people don't like it, and you feel terrible about that. But, you know, you have to work out what is your stuff and what is theirs. You know, how much is this you going into over survival mode and having a financial panic? And how much is it about people who need to make their own decisions? And really, you have to respect that to a certain degree, tough as it is, because we're in transition. So be flexible, and then just try to own your own stuff and not impinge on other people's too much.
Yeah, we actually have a board up in the house, and you book in the slots when you need priority broadband. Everyone else has to get offline. But yes, in there is booked in breaks. Yes. Team breaks, we call them. It's a phrase my dad coined, which I used to roll my eyes at as a child, but actually is a wonderful thing, because at least the kids know if they don't see me for a few hours, that they know when they're going to see me, reduces their level of anxiety and improves their behaviour, frankly. So yeah, that helps. We've got a few people writing in here actually about just practicalities, about teaching online. You don't have to talk as loud as you think you do. I found myself doing this. I talk too loudly anyway, but I found myself really talking like this for hours and hours. Oh my God, you hate the sound of your own voice by the end, and it hurts your throat. There's a few things that I've worked out that have just sort of calmed it down a bit. I used to teach online here and there all the time, but never for great swathes of the day like I am now. But an extension cable for your headphones is really good. You can get a bit further away from it. It just makes me feel a little bit more distance and a little bit calmer. And then I naturally sort of lower my voice a little bit. So those of you who are writing in here, you might want to try that. It's it can be helpful. It's a whole mindset, isn't it, Fiona, about still feeling like you're in a room with somebody, even though you're not.
Well, what I miss is the, you know, I miss a lot of body language. I miss a lot of transference. You know, you're only using a few of your senses, and that's why it's so exhausting, because you're over concentrating on those all the time. And you've just got to recognize that and give yourself spaces afterwards, I think, when you can just chill out and do something completely different if possible.
Fantastic. I think we'll leave it there for tonight, but please do remember you can email in to that email address, Phil, which is
support@esterstrings.org.uk.
Fantastic. And Fiona will answer any of your questions about that. And we also, you know, on a less clinical level, can just be here as friends for you at this time. So please do let us know if you're feeling down, or if you've got any great ideas. In fact, I think next week we might have some exciting news on the audio online learning front. So I'll leave that dangled there. Have more information next week. But thank you very much from all of us, from Fiona Macbeth, from Ingrid Perrin, Phil Ed, and me, Nicole Wilson. Night, night, everybody.